Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Rubaya Nasrin, graduated in architecture in 2013 and currently working at Bengal Institute, which is the architecture-related think tank of Bangladesh. So from my student life, especially after taking up the rural architecture course, I've been inclined towards this area of study, which has reflected in my student projects and as well as in my professional life, because I participated in many rural architecture-related activities. And that brings me to talk about under the theme of lessons from rural-based architecture, where I'll be giving this presentation prepared by me and my co-author Mahmoudul Islam Chaudhary. The topic is the approach to learn rural architecture plays a vital role on its impact on sustainable development. At first, I'll describe the gist or the abstract of the whole paper and then come to the hypothesis. I'll try to raise some basic key questions and convey my understandings of those questions. At the end, I'll talk about some inspiring people and projects and how can we approach to learn from them. Okay, to begin with, let's talk about the need to learn rural-based architecture. I think it comes from the desire to make long-term sustainable development by holding on to own culture. In order to develop sustainable strategies for future, it is very important to know and take account of, learn from what local people already know and accomplish. Local people not only observe their surrounding and also experiment and develop appropriate technologies to fit their own environment. Their knowledge is generated and transmitted through the various interests, perceptions, beliefs, interactions, and among specific social and agroecological contexts. So here, I'm basically talking about rural architecture, approach to learn, and sustainable development. All these three segments are interconnected with culture, theory, practice, local people, local materials, engagement with people, and how it reflects on own work and inspiring works. For example, if we want to talk about approach to learn, it involves learning the culture, it involves learning from local people, and most importantly, it involves engagement with people. And this factor leads to the hypothesis, which is the approach to learn rural architecture should be focused on the process rather than the product. So I'm suggesting that rural architecture can be learned by being involved with the process and also by studying the product, which is the sustainable design itself. The process it is the process which starts from creating a saving group, mobilizing community for better housing, involvement of rural builders, using local materials in different ways, the traditional construction methods. These are more important. Being involved with this process is more important than just to know the techniques of producing a house. To understand this topic, we can ask some three basic simple questions. What is rural architecture? Why should we learn that? And which is the more efficient way to learn that? So rural architecture has many related terms like primitive architecture, indigenous architecture, vernacular architecture, traditional architecture, and many more. Usually, rural architecture suggests that rural structures which evolve through trial and error procedure, guided by emotions and family needs. Usually, such construction is being made and is being conditioned by its immediate environment, culture, and economic ability. So it is very evident that rural architecture is actually more than just rural structures. It involves local people, their emotions, their lifestyles. So to learn rural architecture, it is important to learn the process they live in and to be involved with that process. So to share my understanding of rural architecture, I have to show this photo because it's the first time I realized what rural architecture is during an assignment in a village where I worked with the villagers in a small village of Bangladesh. And so this two-storied building made with mud and bamboo represents the strength of local materials and techniques. It was introduced by a man without any formal education who works for local material promotions and runs an organization under that. So people living in rural areas don't need designer to build their houses, right? So they make their home with aspirations and dreams. But their aspiration, it has been changing with time, and they tend to follow mainstream ideas for lack of awareness about local materials. This is one example which has inspired these specific villagers to remain working with local materials, and that's how the knowledge has been sustaining here. And why should we learn that? To simplify, I can just say to achieve physical and social sustainability. Okay, by social sustainability, I mean the stories which at the core, which emerges from the traditions, timeless events, and lifestyles and rituals of any specific society. And physical sustainability expresses affordability, availability, and appropriateness. Rural houses are constructed by materials in the surrounding area, and that is one principle which can be followed to design zero-energy buildings. For a short time and document the houses, then they submit their assignment or presentation in class. On contrary, if we could introduce a process in learning where students would read and sketch with a purpose, they could stay for a longer time in the community or villages and involve with the rural people throughout their process. And the presentation, even the presentation could be done by the local people. So that would be an experience to remember for the students rather than just submitting an assignment. Experiences. The man in the core is the auditor, who I mentioned before is the founder of this local organization for promoting local materials in Bangladesh. So he is a person without any formal education, and he is teaching fourth-year architecture students about using materials and techniques and how it works in village. And not just local Bangladeshi students, usually there is one or more international student or architects working with him in the rural houses. Another important factor is community participation. So I just meant community participation is a process where architects and the community people work together. And here, for example, in this case, architects are learning from local people about the components or the elements of the house elements, home elements. Like for placing a cowshed, they have specific logics for why they put it near their house to keep an eye so that thieves, to keep away from thieves. And as I was talking about presentation by the locals, this is another example. Because in this process of community participation, the local gets empowered, and given a chance, they can present their work in front of others. And once they are empowered, their knowledge sustains in the community through them. Okay, to take lessons from rural-based architecture, we can follow some inspiring people, and like from Hassan Fatih, we can learn how rural architecture can be a philosophy. Laurie Baker shows us how can we use local materials at its best way. Khondakar Hasibul Kabir, a Bangladeshi architect, has been manifesting how people can be empowered through architecture. And lastly, Ajit Roy, who is a community mobilizer, shows us how to spread the gained knowledge among others. So according to Hassan Fatih, I'll quote his words a little. You must start from the beginning, letting your buildings grow from the daily lives of the people who live in them, shaping the houses to the measure of the people's songs, weaving the patterns of a village as if on the village looms, mindful of the trees and the crops that will grow there, respectful to the skyline and humble before the seasons. Hassan Fatih's works have showed how he has perceived rural architecture as a philosophy, and he followed some basic fundamental principles like belief in the primacy of human values, the essential role of traditions, use of appropriate technology, need for socially oriented cooperative techniques, importance of a universal rather than a limited approach, and the re-establishment of national cultural pride through the act of building. While Fatih is known for his philosophy, Laurie Baker is known for his initiatives in cost-effective, energy-efficient architecture. And these people have always worked with ordinary people, we call the rural people. Like in a quote Laurie Baker says, it was also from the influence of Mahatma Gandhi I learned that the real people you should be building for and who are in need are the ordinary people, those living in villages. The similar philosophy has been followed by Khondokar Hasibul Kabir, who is a landscape architect and a sustainability advocate working in Bangladesh. So to work with people and to empower people, he actually lived in a slum for a few years. On the left, that is a platform of hope, which was built in a slum where he lived and worked with the children, and ultimately created this community space with them, where the children of that slum comes and reads book. Currently, he's practicing community architecture in and around a small town of Bangladesh called Chinaida. His interventions are often a collaboration of local community, local authorities, NGOs, and like-minded institutions. He believes in empowering community through trust and knowledge. His humble intervention reflects on the low-cost housing project where community build their own houses with their own saving and own skills through a citywide network. Ajit Roy, as I mentioned before, promotes local materials in Bangladesh. To communicate with people, he involves local singers during the workshops where songs are made with lyrics that talk about rural architecture and lifestyle. The local communities themselves play those plays, songs, or poems that enhances the significance of a specific architectural aspect, and rural people could always remember that and improve and maintain their homes. And lastly, I'll show some inspiring projects, like to show how rural architecture can be perceived in a contemporary way. I'll give the example of Rudrapur School in Dinajpur, Bangladesh, and another significant example is Hunarshala Foundation of India. It shows how rural architecture can spread among people. Okay, this is Rudrapur School, designed by architect Anna Heringer. This project made with mud and bamboo won an Aga Khan Award. I'll just quote a few words from the jury. The joyous and elegant two-story primary school in rural Bangladesh has emerged from a deep understanding of local materials and a heartfelt connection to the local community. Its innovation lies in the adoption of traditional methods and materials of construction to create light-filled celebratory spaces as well as informal spaces for children. And Hunarshala Foundation is an organization who's been working with local artisans and craftsmen. Their approach is to empower people, to how habitat solutions can become more environment friendly, and how local artisanal knowledge and skill can deliver high quality products. Well, their process involves local craftsmen, and with that process, they hope that indigenous vocabulary of architecture would emerge, giving expression to local culture. So all these examples lead to the conclusion that approach of learning rural architecture by being involved with the process would explore how a dream comes to reality, and the ideas and techniques stand a much better chance of spreading to others in the immediate and surrounding community. And at the same time, this process spreads happiness. So I'll end the presentation with some happy faces who, according to me, are the happiest clients, are the rural people. Thank you.